You've joined the Betamax Video Club, rewinding back to our favourite films of the 1980s. My name's Rich Nelson, and tonight I've rented Trading Places. Joining me again is Emma Bennell. Hi Emma, how are you?
I have a slight cold, but apart from that, I'm absolutely fine, Richard. How are you?
Very good. Join the club. Now, this is our, I suppose, final Christmas/festive film of the season. What's so special about Trading Places for you?
I've been watching Trading Places since I was a little girl. It's one of the ones that my brother really liked, and my brother used to get really obsessed, not just with films, but with particular moments in films. So he would rewind them over and over and over again, and the train scene, which we'll get to, I'm sure, but it's probably a bit dodgy now, but he used to love that, so we used to watch that over and over again. And there are various lines in this that we always just quote to each other. It's a film I've just loved all my life, really. So whether it's a Christmas movie or not, it's definitely a film that makes me feel festive.
Now, we were talking about this sort of before we started recording. Now, this is, I suppose, not perhaps one of the obvious Christmas films of the 80s. It's as much set around Christmas, but also New Year, really, which is funny. Bear in mind that the last time you were on the pod, it was about a film that ended on New Year. It was When Harry Met Sally. So, but yeah, it's strange. It's often lumped in. It's always on the Sky Christmas movie channel. We've got huge parts of it, and yet a lot of people remember parts. The train being the main one, where it's mostly Eddie Murphy saying "Merry New Year"
and Jim Belushi.
He was good in that. I mean, normally I find him a bit up and down, but he was maybe in small doses.
Yes, he's a good cameo artist.
Yeah.
Less good leading man.
I'll agree with that. So this film came out in 1983, and what I've started doing recently is also chucking in some of the director's credits, normally for funny reasons, but it turns out that John Landis has directed several of my certainly favourite films. What films
Absolutely.
are up there? I mean, I suppose for me, Coming to America is kind of the main one, but he did Three Amigos, The Blues Brothers, the music video for Thriller. This guy had a massive impact on 80s me.
Well, John Landis, speaking of films that my brother got obsessed with, Coming to America was another one. He would rewind the band performance.
Sexual Chocolate.
We just looking, and to this day, I'm now in my 40s, my brother's in his late 30s, and we could just turn to each other and say "Sexual Chocolate," or just crack up for hours. And again, the Blues Brothers, I don't think there's a line in there I can't quote.
It's amazing the impact that his films have had. I went to a screening of Coming to America at the BFI last month, and they did a Q&A with John Landis afterwards. It was on Sky, but unfortunately I had to leave because I'd work the next morning. But it's amazing that this was, and I mean, this is Coming to America, so I'll probably talk about that if I ever do that pod. But a film that was 30 years old, and the BFI, one of the big important cinemas in central London, was full on a Friday night for essentially Coming to America. It's brilliant.
And of course there is a connection, because maybe we want to talk about that later, because otherwise it's quite a spoiler for the end of this film. But there is, the beginning of, or early in Coming to America, you do see some of the characters from here.
Yes, it's a small little universe it occupies.
Yes.
So this film, it's set in Philadelphia, and the opening credits, it very much verges between the more affluent parts of the city and also the very poor parts, which, funny enough, I'm sure I've seen in Rocky, and you can even see the Rocky statue at some point in the credits as well, just to really ram it home. But I mean, it doesn't take long for you to realise that the premise of the film is that Louis Winthorpe, he's the affluent, he's very good at his job. He has to be woken up by his butler and reads the paper while he's being shaved, and even that as he leaves his house in the morning to go to work, he won't even go to the car until the door's open for him. It's a very special existence.
Very privileged, very pampered.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I suppose part of it would be the American dream for some. Is that a lot of people would see that and think, "Oh, I fancy some of that."
Yes, And I think the fact that he's Lewis Winthorpe the third is not lost on, this is
Yes.
inherited wealth as much as it's, him being good at his job.
Shortly after, we cut to the mansion where Randolph and Mortimer Duke, the Duke brothers, live. They again have a cast of thousands serving them. They walk to the car and everyone's like, "Good morning, Mr. Duke. Good morning, Mr. Duke." Again, just that to 99% of the world. That's just, well, 99.9% of the world. That's a completely alien concept. And yet for them, they've probably had that their whole life. And it's a very good insight,
Yeah.
I'm sure, into what we're dealing with at one end of the spectrum of this film before we go very much to the other end and we meet Billy Ray Valentine.
Yes, who we first encounter him begging outside the Duke's club,
Yeah,
pretending to have no legs.
he's this was Eddie Murphy. It was only his second film after 48 Hours, and it's
Really?
amazing, really. I
That's a
guess.
bravura performance.
Yeah, bear in mind, the first one as well. This isn't someone who had a film career anyway, where he sort of worked his way up. I mean, obviously he did in comedy circles, and we talked about it a little bit when sort of Steve Martin, for example, it's slightly different. But again, a lot of people forget he was such a huge stand-up comedian before he went into films, and yet Eddie Murphy in this just absolutely steals the show, not just as begging Billy Ray. It's easy for him to say, like, "I ain't seen nothing since I stepped on a landmine in Viet Cong in '72." It's a he's sort of pure electric performance,
Mm.
really.
Yeah, he's incredible in it, and and throughout, and he does both sides of Billy Ray. When as the experiment goes on, it's a subtle performance as well as being a bravura performance.
Because this is part of, I mean, the main premise of the film I touched upon is that the Duke brothers, who are so rich from basically trading commodities, which is not something I'm particularly au fait with, even with my economics degree. I'll give that away. They, after a sort of chance meeting between Louis and Billy Ray outside the club, where Billy Ray bumps into Louis, and Louis immediately sees a poor black man and assumes that he's being robbed. Because there's a slight contact, he drops his briefcase, and of course this becomes a bit of a slapstick sketch being chased around the club. But for them, it's just a chance to have a little bit of fun. And while talking about Louis deciding that, is he the product of his environment, or is it because of superior breeding? The whole concept of the inherited wealth and the fact that he made them, was it $350,000 in about 20 seconds with pork belly?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not something to be sniffed at when you're having your bowl of Aldi Cheerios in the morning.
So the Dukes, it seems that now I can never remember which one's Randolph and which one's Mortimer. Ralph Bellamy says, it's all a product of environment, and this guy could be perfect if he had the right background. And Don Amici, I mean, it's an incredible cast.
Yeah,
is like, no, it's all about breeding. So yeah, Randolph, who is Ralph Bellamy, that's where the bet is set up, is that's where their disagreement. Randolph is very into kind of looking at in the nature versus nurture debate.
it's fascinating when you think about, without trying to get too sort of philosophical or anything, it is something I suppose that people have probably pondered for years or decades, and thinking that if is it pure lottery that people born into a certain postcode, for example, will get advantages that others don't, and the fact that Louis is so gifted at his job, but the idea that could we place someone of Billy Ray's, I suppose, assumed background and think that he'll do as good, if not a better job. And all they need to do is get him out of jail, dress him up as Alan Partridge, and give him a job.
I mean, it was a very, very live debate in the 80s. There was a lot of stuff about nature versus nurture, and particularly some quite racially tinged, their brains are different from ours stuff. Was happening in the 80s and 90s. It was sort of a kickback against the sort of civil rights 60s. So it was a very, very live debate then, where some people tried to prove that black people were just genetically less intelligent. It's not their fault, bless them poor dears, kind of thing. I mean, it's all complete bollocks. but it was a live debate at that time. So it may well have been the sort of thing that people like the Dukes would have discussed over breakfast.
And this is very much the sort of rich man's club discussion, and
Yeah.
the very fact that, not giving it away, their wager over whether they could almost get away with it, and of course that there are two sides to the coin, where it's not just can we get Billy Ray Valentine to become, a huge executive in a commodities trading firm. The other side of the coin is also, can we make someone of Louis Winthorpe's background become so desperate that he goes and takes up a life of crime, all for a bet of $1?
Yeah.
Just to show that they don't need any money. It's purely symbolic.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. They take these people's lives and mess around with them just because they can.
Nice power to have.
Yeah.
Now, the way they managed to discredit Louis is that in the gentleman's club, I was almost tempted to call it working man's club, but that's very much not the case. You've got Louis in the club, and they managed to get their, I suppose, hired goon, Clarence Beeks. He's I suppose, a private security guard who seems to be permanent in their pocket. He slips some marked bills into Louis's pocket, and they do a very large outing of him in front of all his peers. Now, Beeks has already been mentioned because Louis sort of come across his name, and while doing the payroll, and it's all very, the Duke brothers, we'll take care of this, But it was nice to see he was the teacher from the Breakfast Club.
Yes, he's a great baddie. That guy. He's in a few things, a few iconic baddies.
Yeah. He's really cornered the market in 80s grumpy middle-aged man.
Yes. The man you love to hate in the 80s. Him and Daubney Coleman.
Yes. So Louis gets arrested at the club, obviously ashamed, because that's part of the plan, is they have to really embarrass this guy. They can't just force him to lose his job. And weirdly, when he gets taken to the police station, the cop who Beeks bribes, I didn't realise that until last night I watched it, was Frank Oz.
Yes.
Yoda.
Help you again? Yes. Mm.
He also cameos in the Blues Brothers, so I suspect him and John Landis are good mates.
And I guess for us it's nice because we could probably walk past him in the street 100 times and not know who he is.
He's Miss Piggy.
Piggy, he's Yoda, he's everything. He's one of the most famous actors in the world, yet you'd struggle to recognise him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Louis in the police station giving it the old, this is a career decision, you'll live to regret this. And then the massive cop just stands up and says,
strip, you little shit, before I tell you a new asshole.
It's the language in this. Given how young my brother must have been when we first watched it, I'm quite surprised we were allowed to.
I've discussed this on other pods where I saw these cuts of films with all this bad language always seem to make it on telly, and I'm not sure whether the language was intact or not. It was just...
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I was a bit shocked by how much swearing, so maybe the version that we taped off the telly was a bit cleaner.
Yeah, I'm sure. Imagine watching this on ITV would just say strip before I tell you an arsehole at 3:00 in the afternoon. And they find a big bag of angel dust in his pocket, and he's at pains to tell everyone it's not heroin, it's PCP. Louis leaves the police station, gets met with his girlfriend, and she meets him. He smells, he's wearing bad clothes because the men in the jail have robbed him of his clothes, and as he's at pains to let everyone know, tries to have sex with him. Beeks is standing nearby and has managed to pay a local prostitute $100 to walk up and kiss and talk dirty to him, just to sort of really ram home the shame in front of his girlfriend. I suppose this is almost an 80s American thing. They expect a lot of prostitutes to be wandering around just touting for business as a local shame merchant.
Well, I think, to be fair, she's just been released from overnight custody because he picks her up in the hallway of the police station, and she's like, look, you can't solicit me here. You're not going to entrap me literally in the police station.
You undercover cops must be desperate.
Yeah.
But this is Ophelia, so it's Jamie Lee Curtis. This is her first real role other than, I suppose, horror films.
So this was her breakout as well.
Other than Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween was kind of her big role, but it was genre.
And this was the first sort of big Hollywood style, other more mainstream, I suppose. But even little things that, her name's Ophelia, where they make a big part, or Louis makes a big part. Anyways, it's like Hamlet's girlfriend, just to kind of show off his sort of class side, I suppose.
Yes. Although she's very aware of the story, so she's not not made out to be stupid in any way.
No, because once she sort of shows pity on him, I suppose, takes him back to her place to kind of help him get him back on her feet, or once he's managed to go back to his old house anyway. It suddenly becomes that she's very intelligent, she's saving up, she's sort of made these plans for her life and career, fully aware that what she does is what she does, and it's her means of doing that.
Yeah, no, and she's not embarrassed by it, and she makes it very clear that although she is helping Louis, it's a business transaction. She wants something from him when he's back on his feet. She strips off and then says, "Yeah, but this don't come for free," and closes the door on him.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the most frozen scenes on any VHS.
By the way, food and rent are not the only things around here that cost money. You sleep on the couch.
So Louis's already been home. They've changed. No, the Dukes, because they own everything, they've changed the locks. Coleman, the butler, has played dumb because he's been told about this experiment.
Well, he actually, and I think slightly oddly, this for me is unrealistic. Works for the Dukes. He makes that explicit.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that the home comes with the job.
I assume so. I mean, I sort of show my sort of background. I thought it would be like if you're a footballer or something, and you sign for a football club, and they provide you with your home, and they have people to help you out. And I guess this must be quite similar. If he probably takes a wage, but the home's included, and
yeah, I mean, it must be a perk thing. Like some jobs come with a car, some jobs do come with a flat.
Yeah, it does seem. But then for him, I suppose, I mean, I don't know how long he had been working, or the butler for Louis. I suppose that the final sort of scene between them, there had been, he seemed quite annoyed by Louis's ways. I think to get him to suddenly change loyalties, as it were, didn't seem like it was that much of a hassle, really.
It wasn't a huge stretch because he thought Louis was a bit of a prat. Yeah. I mean, Denham Elliott is my favourite.
He is brilliant.
I adore him. The bit where him and Louis and the girlfriend go off and have really dull sex, and they don't want the dessert that he's clearly been slaving over in front of them. It's one of those flambe things, and then he says, "Oh, you have it," and he just goes straight in the kitchen and puts it in the bin.
And I think it was just after that he got the phone call, actually, wasn't it? So it was almost like, it was the perfect time.
It was well timed.
Because Billy Ray has been already introduced to Coleman, and there's the funny scene where they're trying to explain, sort of, Coleman and the Dukes, that this is all Billy Ray's, this is his vase, this is his TV. And there are parts where, because Billy Ray seems to be almost trying to be polite and human towards Coleman, that then it's almost like his loyalty is already gone, because even I think that the part where Billy Ray, he goes to the bar and brings everyone back, Coleman looks like he's starting to enjoy himself at the party a little bit, as all these people that he's probably never come across in his life.
Yeah,
he's enjoying himself, and towards the end, when Billy Ray, starting to turn into a Louis, starts throwing everyone out, and he says, "Oh, maybe I will retire, thanks." And it's obviously like the first time that anyone's thanked Coleman for anything in 20 years.
Yes. They, he's not the furniture to those people. Whereas for Louis and his mates, there's just an assumption that he's always there.
The help. Billy Ray starts his new day at Dukes and Dukes. The cab pulls alongside, the cab that Louis and Ophelia are in pulls alongside the limo, and there's the sort of thing.
Tiny limo. It's really funny. It's like when he calls it a limousine. And I think this is just a modern thing, because I don't remember this ever jarring for me before. But when Billy Ray's in the bar picking up all his mates, and he says, "Look outside, that's my limo," and they look outside, and there's Coleman by this car that is not remotely Stretch at all. And that's a limo. In my imagination, limos are about 3 times the size of that, the length of that.
Yeah, because this is like a very nice, classic-looking Mercedes, but it's certainly not a Stretch limo or anything that you'd see on My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding or something like that.
It's or in just any Hollywood premiere.
Yeah.
it's obviously that what's happened since the 1980s, that limos have just got longer and longer and longer. And we would have not picked up on that then, but now it's like, that's not a limo. This is a limo.
And that was a limo.
Yeah.
One of the next scenes is, it always struck me as really creepy. They go to the tennis club.
Oh, yes.
Louis goes there to speak to his former friends and that to clear his name. And there's these 4 guys wearing like cricket jumpers, I suppose, the sort of dickheads you'd see at Lord's on a Thursday morning, singing a cappella to these 4 women who seem to be lapping it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the song they sing seems to be about the women.
Yeah.
And not very I mean, sort of basically sort of talking about their sexual behaviour, as far as I can tell. And it's like Revenge of the Nerds type gross. You know?
It maybe something we don't understand as a courtship ritual of the well-off, but yeah.
Maybe that's why I've never landed myself anyone from the aristocracy.
To be honest, if they sing to you like that, would you want to?
God, no. Also, if they call you Muffy, it's like, no, I did not wish to be called Muffy or Buffy. Well, I would be Buffy, but that's a different story.
That's an odd set of names. I just find it strange. I mean, I go to, I do occasionally go to the cricket, and it's almost like a social experiment for me, because I grew up very much not of that set, and seeing it's the famous sort of that blog about the guys wearing red chinos, and
yeah.
It is very much like that, and I imagine that there's probably people in the corporate boxes at Lord's singing these songs to whichever poor women happen to be in their vicinity. And
I mean, there was also, I mean, the fiancée is clearly already with Todd, being very proprietary about her, and that was just a bit like, I mean, it's been a day.
Yeah, because she was using Todd as a sort of weapon against Louis before, when he said he couldn't go to her mum's party or something, and she was like, okay, I'll go with Todd. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I thought that, I mean, she's very underwritten. She's clearly just a foil. But yeah, there was that was kind of like, oh right, well that's clearly moved on then. But I felt a little too quickly, even under the circumstances she thought she was in.
Yeah, I suppose even in a film like this, you can only have one fairly well-rounded female character.
God forbid you should have more than one.
No, and even Jamie Lee Curtis didn't pop up for about 45 minutes. So
well, yeah.
So Louis, because he's turned up in a load of clothes that Ophelia had in her wardrobe, looking very much like a pimp.
Yes.
He suddenly realised, because they're laughing at him and his appearance, he goes off to pawn his $7,000 watch, and Bo Diddley gives him $50 for it, and then he buys a gun with it.
That's another crossover from the Blues Brothers.
Yeah. Again, it's just little things like this that pop up, and it does seem like there's a very small little world that we're just sort of watching from afar.
Landis world, yeah.
Wouldn't be a bad place to be. So Louis bought a gun. He goes to the Christmas party at Duke and Duke dressed as Santa, downtrodden. It's not even a clean Santa costume. This filthy, this disgusting grey beard, and him trying to hide a whole salmon inside his jacket and bits of ham in the pocket. Now, I mean, I do like a good ham at Christmas. Part of me is all tempted to, perhaps sneak a slice into the pocket. But yeah, this is the part where the Dukes do win their bet about the fact that they drive him to this.
Hit rock bottom.
And having to go back to his old place of work and try and plant drugs on Billy Ray Valentine. It's
and pulling a gun on various people.
Yeah, and he seems to enjoy that part where he jumps on the table, wields the gun, and everyone ducks. Just in that half a second, he has that face of, wow, this is power.
Yes, he feels re-empowered, I think, for the first time since all of the nightmare began.
Yeah.
It's a different type of power, but that's clearly what he wants, is that sense of power.
It's just a shame he has to go and drown it in sort of a bottle of Jack Daniels or something.
Well, and then, once he's lost it again, he loses it properly and he tries to kill himself.
Yeah.
First of all with the gun and then with pills.
Yeah. But it's at the Christmas party, because Billy Ray, he's And again, this is the sort of an easy joke. You know, when he's putting the drugs in the bin, he obviously keeps one of the joints in his pocket and goes off to the gents and has a little smoke. The Dukes come in, and while Billy Ray's in the cubicle, they start talking about the bet. And this is where they use the N-word, and you know, and this is when like, any sort of, I mean, they are obviously maybe not the villains, but the antagonists of the film. They are, I guess now it's easy to say, sort of 35 years later. God, just in using "I won't have an N-word running our company," immediately it's like, right, done.
Yeah, they place themselves, and I think what's most interesting is it's the one who seemed the more liberal of the two who says that.
Yeah,
that's obviously a deliberate choice,
because it immediately thinks, right, these aren't just two old codgers who are bored and looking to have some fun with their money, which this is them, right, and actually deliberately unpleasant, you know, horrible people who, you know, and because Billy Ray's heard this. You know, I mean, obviously he's suspicious of everything anyway. In that walk of life, if two rich old people come up and suddenly give you charity, it's bad enough when he gets in the car with them at the beginning and he thinks that they're, you know, whether they're trying to use him as a prostitute or paying him in cigars and whiskey and But yeah, he's really distrustful of them anyway, and it doesn't take, you know, this is all it is, just to kind of convince him that, right, this is bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and also I think he has more sympathy for Dan Aykroyd's character than Winthorpe had for him. You know, he immediately goes to his house to try and, you know, to say to him, look, this is what they've done to us. I'm not sure that if it'd been the other way round, Winthorpe would have done the same. No,
because it still takes him a while to almost come round.
Yeah, exactly.
And because, I mean, part of that conversation between the brothers was that, okay, well, we'll send Valentine back to the ghetto or whatever, but they wouldn't take Louis back.
No, not after what he'd done. He's both of their lives are now screwed.
Yeah, so even the part of the bet where we'll restore him, it's like, no, not after what he's done. And Billy Ray's the real sort of hero of the piece, I suppose, in the fact that he does find Louis in Ophelia's bathtub having tried.
Yeah.
It's almost like a cliche sort of 80s TV, like Dallas or Dynasty sort of show where Louis wakes up in his own bed and thinks, I had this horrible dream.
Yeah. And you were there. Yeah. And then he spots Billy Ray and he tries to kill him. And while Billy Ray is choking, he's like, it was that Dukes, it was that Dukes.
It was a dream. I dreamt the whole thing. It was just a bad dream.
Good morning, sir. Merry Christmas.
Coleman, I had the most absurd nightmare. I was poor and no one liked me. I lost my job, I lost my house. Penelope hated me. And it was all because of this terrible, awful Negro.
It was the Dukes. It was the Dukes.
You're a dead man, Valentine!
It then becomes quite a straightforward, you know, that you've got your gang of four, really.
Yeah, it's a caper movie from here on in.
Yeah, because Ophelia, because we know that she's an intelligent person, she's good with money, she's sort of savvy. She's the one who kind of encourages them. I mean, they're sort of plotting their revenge, and Louis cleaning his shotguns and everything else, and Billy Ray saying, well, the best way to do that, as you know, to get at them is to make them poor. And she recognises Beaks on the telly because there's this plot, and this is the part where I suppose myself and several people probably go cross-eyed at the orange crops and how they're going to make money out of frozen orange juice.
Yeah, and the thing in this film that for me is least realistic is using Beaks for both jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like, really? Like, they're very rich. Why would you do that?
It's difficult if you're using the same person to both steal orange crop reports and to discredit employees. I suppose it's that whole sort of, you know, keep your parts of the business separate.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I kind of get what was going on with the orange crop report, but I know I didn't when I was younger.
No.
Like, what? Like,
I'm not the greatest with money at the moment anyway, so even if they came up to me with this sort of basically golden goose, I'd sort of still go, orange juice.
yeah, exactly. And it's weird that they went for orange juice. When you think of those commodities, quite often what you think of is pork bellies because of all the sort of, living high on the hog, that kind of thing. Or gold.
Yeah.
Gold is the obvious, but I suppose you can't have a crop report about gold.
No, but then this is when the part where they try to explain the commodities to Billy Ray, and that part where they're explaining the job, and he gives that look to camera as though they're talking down to me, the fuckers. And just that look to where he's just kind of, they're talking to him like he's a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
It's priceless.
But it also does the job of telling the audience exactly what the commodities market is, which is why it's in there.
This is gold. This is pork belly, like your bacon. We sell, and he likens it to bookies.
Yes, because I mean that's exactly what the commodities market is betting on what the price of something will be.
The fact that they make them, and then the fact that they make their money either way, where either they, the client makes or loses money, but they still get their commission.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I don't know, again, like orange crop reports in the 80s, but it seemed to be this whole huge thing, and maybe just because back in 1983 I wasn't quite in the circles of the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, I was barely walking probably. But
this is the thing. I don't think it was a whole huge thing in that the whole country was tuned in, but it would have been on whatever the business channel, the Bloomberg of its day. So I think it was a big thing in the stock exchange. I don't think the people so I was in New York when the Christine Blasey Ford thing was happening, and literally every television in every bar, when I went and had my nails done, I watched it in there. It was everywhere. This isn't that. This is a very specific audience who are tuned to it because they need to know for their jobs.
Yeah. I suppose, my equivalent of that would be, I think I was in Vegas when the last episode of Friends was on.
Oh, wow.
And because even then I think the UK was probably a week or so behind, and I was trying to avoid it, and they showed the last scene on a sports channel.
Oh my gosh.
Because everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh.
I was also in New York on 9/11.
Oh, okay.
Not New York, I was in California on 9/11. Having just landed from Vegas at 2 a.m, so it must have been one of the last planes in the air before it all happened. And that was again, ubiquitous.
Yeah, I was at Gatwick Airport actually when that happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, went on holiday still a day later. Now again, this is something that we'd probably see massive different in the stock exchange. I mean, jumping ahead a little bit, I mean, the whole scene where Billy Ray and Louis are going towards the stock exchange, and Louis saying, oh, it's, you've never seen anything like it, it's kill or be killed. And this really is like deathmatch sort of stuff.
Yeah, very macho.
Yeah, it's sort of boisterous men waving bits of paper, shouting buy, sell, whatever. And Eddie Murphy looked like he was having the time of his life, and apparently admitted he didn't know what the hell he was doing. He just followed the script and didn't know anything about what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I'll buy from you, I'll buy from you, I'll buy from you. Quite camp at that point as well. It's quite funny.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
Yeah, he's clearly just having a laugh. And I mean, to be fair though, neither did Billy Ray, so it wasn't out of character.
No, he's there to make a bit of money and help bring the downfall of the Duke brothers. I mean, it was good fun. Now, I've just realised I've completely jumped over perhaps one of the funniest parts of the film, the whole train scene.
Yes. Funny, but also watching with modern eyes is like,
oh God.
Oh my God, what is Dan Aykroyd doing?
I know. I mean, I didn't realise. I mean, I have seen it a few times, and I think maybe it's just because I'm watching it slightly differently now because, doing the podcast and stuff. But, I mean, some of this is borderline, well, I mean, it's offensive, but it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Beeks has got the report for the orange crop that he's going to take to the Dukes. He gets on it's like a party train from Philadelphia to Washington?
Philadelphia to Washington to Philadelphia,
right.
I think.
Yeah. They're setting up everything from the beginning. You've got Jim Belushi dressed as an ape.
Yeah.
You've got
Gorilla.
a gorilla.
He's very, very
Of
strict
course,
on that
yeah.
point.
He's not a monkey motherfucker, I think he tells someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's also the real gorilla that's being loaded.
Being transported by a very young Al Franken. That's speaking of things that are slightly dodgy these days.
Yes. So this real gorilla is being transported on the train in order to be shipped to Africa. And Beaks is on there, he thinks he's going to have a nice little train ride. There's the part at the beginning where he winds up the gorilla through the window, starts pulling faces. And
yeah.
I suppose we'll find out later it actually looks like a courting ritual of some sort. And Billy Ray bursts into the cabin as an exchange student from the Cameroon.
Yes.
I suppose this is almost a link to Coming to America itself. I mean, that part's, he's very, very loud and outlandish.
Yes, he's wearing a full dashiki and everything, isn't he?
Oh, he's in the full garb and with was it the elephant tail or something?
Yeah, he has sort of, an elephant tail kind of fly swatter thing.
Yeah. So he goes and sits down and, I suppose the object of this is to distract Beaks in order to steal his briefcase. Coleman, because he's very much part of this.
It's Coleman and Ophelia.
Oh, they love it.
Both invest in this scheme.
Yeah, and we find out shortly afterwards, literally put the house on it. Coleman comes in as an Irish priest.
The whiskey and everything, yeah.
Ophelia comes in as a Swedish in lederhosen.
But as Coleman points out, but you're wearing lederhosen, which are Austrian.
I read on IMDb apparently she couldn't do an Austrian accent very well.
Nah.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure many people can, but it's easy to say.
You just go German, don't you? I mean, when everyone does a Freudian accent, what they do is go German.
Yeah, I suppose it's more cheeky, funny Swedish. She's got the blonde wig on and almost everything on show, just to distract Beaks enough by putting my rucksack on the shelf. Well, that sounded more German. Fuck.
I am putting my rucksack on the shelf. Yeah, it's all up and down like a Swedish chef.
I'm sure if my wife walks in and hears me trying to talk Swedish and with her... We're recording this on Finnish Independence Day. Happy birthday, Finland, or something. Yeah, let's chuck that in.
Hey, Finland.
Hey, hey.
That's the only thing I know, but hey, hey.
Yeah, goodbye, yes.
Is it hey for hello and hey for goodbye?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what.
I grew up with a Finnish friend.
Okay.
Well, her parents were Finnish, but that's literally all I know.
That's all right. My 2-year-old speaks more Finnish than I do, anyway.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let me see now. You would be from Austria, am I right?
No, I am Inga from Sweden.
Sweden. But you're wearing lederhosen.
Yeah, for sure, from Sweden. Please to help me with my rucksack.
Oh, yeah, sure, why not?
So they managed to switch briefcases because Billy Ray has the identical one, switches it with Winthorpe, who's in the toilet. And they get busted when Louis walks into the cabin, and the only way of describing it is just blacked up.
He's blacked up. He's for literally no good reason. He's blacked up as a kind of 1980s style black civil rights activist. He's wearing kind of all the kind of cool denim stuff.
Yeah.
And there is literally no reason for this. I'm like, why couldn't he have just been a white guy? I mean, I suppose Beaks would have recognised him. I think the argument is Beaks would have recognised Louis.
But the thing is that he recognised him anyway.
Yeah.
They had the... Louis and Billy Ray had their discussion about the African seminar, wherever it was they were supposed to have met before and do their little dance, and then Beaks immediately
Yeah.
Beaks immediately pulls his Rasta wig off and pulls a gun on him.
Yeah. Now, and I don't really understand why. I mean, I haven't watched it that closely, but why did Dan Aykroyd have to be in the carriage? Why weren't the three of them doing the exchange in the carriage enough?
It strikes me almost as he just wanted to get in on it, but
yeah.
While Beaks had certainly come across Ophelia before, but it just strikes, it's almost that sort of hubris, really.
Yeah.
But it does allow them to be led into the gorilla car.
Indeed, and and Beaks says in that, so Beaks is doing all the swaggering.
Yeah.
So he's, New Year is over, and Jim Belushi is trying to follow Ophelia at this point, and he's like really into her. So he's like, "Over, you moron! It's only just started." And so he follows them in the gorilla costume, which is an important detail.
Yes, because as Beaks gets hit by the gorilla because he assaulted.
Because he assaults Jim Belushi.
Yeah, so the gorilla obviously sees him assault another gorilla and thinks, no, not having that. They dress him up in... And then there is a look between Louis and Billy Ray. And it's like, right, let's put the gorilla suit on him and stick him in the gorilla cage. Probably knowing, I'd imagine, what's likely to happen.
Yes. Well, I mean, is it likely? I mean, I don't know very much about these things. Between this and Firstborn, that's my only understanding of interspecies breeding.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're a gorilla trapped in a cage, you have urges.
Yes.
Yeah.
But do you have urges for someone who's actually just someone in a gorilla suit? And also, without wishing to go into too graphic a detail, what kind of a gorilla suit allows that kind of access?
Before I tell you a new asshole.
Maybe I don't really want to go into the science. Let's just say by the time the gorilla cage reaches the docks on the boat to Africa, it looks like they're in love.
Well, it looks like one of them's in love, the other one's designed.
And Ever has these eyes of, oh God, all the way to Africa. That's a long trip.
That's a long, long trip. Yes, it is. And that's it. That's the end of Beaks. The last we hear is he's being shipped off to be released into the wild.
Yeah, if he makes it that far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we've sort of touched on the stock exchange part, so they go off. Now, Coleman has given Louis and Billy Ray his life savings. Ophelia's given them the money that she'd saved up, so that I think she said that was about 50 grand.
42,000, I think.
And they've also got the money that because they posed as Beaks to get to give the fake orange crop report to the Dukes.
Yeah, they've got the cash that was given to him for that.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly how much money they've got, but they've got a fair bit, enough to start anyway. Now, this is the part where I don't know what's going on. The Dukes are trying to buy all the stock because they think that they've got insider knowledge that they're going to make a load of money because of the...
So basically, my understanding is the crop report, when it comes out, says that the cold weather has not affected the harvest. So the worry would have been before the crop report came out that orange juice would have had a problem. There wouldn't have been enough of it to go around. Now, my slight instinct is that the price would have gone up if it got rarer.
Yeah.
Why they were buying the stock, I don't know. But that's maybe just me being pernickety. But so, yeah, basically they're trying to corner the market on orange juice because they know what's going to be in the report and other people don't.
Yeah, so they think that orange juice is going to be super scarce, and thus if they buy it all, they'll have control of all of it. But then, so they start buying it, the price goes up, and then all of a sudden Billy Ray and Louis start selling, which then drives the price down sort of far lower than it was when it started.
Yeah.
And it turns out that by the close of trading, they've lost $394 million.
Yeah.
And because they don't have that much cash, basically they are ruined because they have to seize and repossess everything they own. That's quite brutal, but I mean, they're the rules I'm sure they've made. And as they say, you know the rules better than anyone.
Yeah, because they practically built the stock exchange, as they say.
Yeah, and the fact I'm sure they've seen plenty of their rivals go out of business because of deals. I guess if insider trading was the done thing, then I suppose that's the advantage you have to take.
Exactly. No, they lose by the rules of their own game. I would just like to go back a moment because there's a scene that I really, really love, which is just before the stock exchange opens. And all the traders are really stressed out. One of them's sort of drinking and one of them's taking pills. And then Billy Ray and Winthorpe are just stood there doing their hair really, really calmly. And the funny part is like Winthorpe actually has long hair and he's sort of combing it into just making it very, very neat. And then Billy Ray just gets out a little comb and nothing changes on his hair at all. But it's clearly just a pose.
It's quite a large afro comb as well.
yeah, exactly. And he has not got an afro.
Yeah.
So but that's kind of we're so cool. We're kind of like chill. We're up against all these sharks, but inside they're not really sharks because we can see how nervous they are.
We know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Well, no, first of all, you have to. They reveal the bet.
Oh, of course, yes.
To the Dukes that they have set them up, that they've done this all, and don't take it personally. It was just a bet for $1.
And I suppose maybe they were more insulted by the fact that Billy Ray won the bet.
Yes, yeah.
You've got, which one was it? Was it Randolph was the one led off on the stretcher?
Randolph then, yes, has a heart attack and was led off on the stretcher, and Mortimer's just screaming them, turn the machines back on!
And this was the part that you mentioned earlier on, where we call back to this in, I suppose, 5 years' time or so, in Coming to America, because Eddie Murphy's character in that is the Prince of Zamunda, gives two homeless guys what is essentially a paper bag full of cash.
Yeah, quite a lot of money. Yeah, and the two homeless guys turn out to be the Dukes.
Who then say, we're back.
We're back.
Randolph! I'm still not talking to you. Look, Mortimer, we're back.
So yeah, that was quite a sweet little callback.
Yeah. And I think the weird thing is that I don't think I'd seen Trading Places before Coming to America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that meant nothing to you?
Well, I guess it was, it would have been later on when I was thinking, oh, right, okay, they're because I suppose back then I'd have probably thought so on a line that, well, that's not a sequel, so that can't be real. You don't get the idea of these sort of cameos and weird callbacks and stuff. And we've had this, they've lost nearly $400 million. We go to a tropical island where Louis and Ophelia have a little boat. Billy Ray and his girlfriend, I suppose, are soaking up the sun. And even Coleman is barking instructions at a local waiter.
The local butler, yes. So that's an interesting response to the does wealth change you thing. Nature and all that. Coleman has immediately turned gamekeeper.
And you'd hope that he'd have at least some understanding, but probably not. I don't know how much money they would have made, but certainly enough to retire to this random island in the middle of the sun somewhere.
And they've all gone together, which is quite sweet. I mean, you can see Louis and Ophelia have fallen in love, but they all need to go to the same. And what was quite funny about this Caribbean island that I noticed, it's clearly freezing. It's clearly not the on season. All the women are forced to wear bikinis, but all the blokes are in knitwear.
Yeah.
And if you look at the wind in the background, it's blowing up a storm.
This was probably filmed in a harbour somewhere in January.
Yeah, exactly. And it's Billy Ray is lying on a tropical beach in a cable knit sweater practically, and I'm like, okay. But his poor girlfriend, who must have been so cold. But
that's not that wouldn't look good on a film.
There you go.
And it's a slightly geeky thing. I when you see someone and the butler then on the tropical island looked really familiar. It turned out he'd been in Superman 3, which I've probably seen 100,000 times.
Who was he in Superman 3?
He was, when Superman puts out the fire at the chemical plant. With this, he was the doctor who has this acid who says it's the strong, and he gives him the acid then that blows up the computer at the end.
Right.
It was one of those things. I was like, "Where's he from? And then straight, thank God you've got IMDb or Google these days. Well, on that festive bombshell, that was Trading Places. I suppose we can only dream of having $394 million to lose, but that's Christmas or New Year. Merry New Year.
Merry New Year!
Merry New Year!
Well, Emma, thanks for coming along.
Thank
you. Now,
we
discussed last time your Zeitgeist Tape podcast. What have we got to look forward to on that in the near future?
Well, we've just released an episode that I'm particularly proud of, which was a documentary I made for my dissertation on political podcasts. So anyone who's interested in sort of why people do podcasts about politics, that's just come out. And then our Christmas special will be coming out later in December on Scrooged.
Oh.
Politics of Scrooged.
Blimey. See, we looked at Scrooged with just the, that's like The Running Man or that's like Groundhog Day. But yeah, I suppose that's a film that is sort of rife again with politics and money and
it's taken straight from the Dickens, which was a very political book. So there you go.
Being a bit of a political Luddite myself, I hopefully we'll all learn something from it.
There you go.
Yes.
And yeah, we try to be quite listenable as well as quite political.
Good. So, I mean, it's not going to go over my head.
No,
Oh,
no,
good.
God, no. No. Any insider jokes we try to keep very much to ourselves.
Well, what I'll do is I'll link to that on this podcast because it'd be good. And I know we've got a couple more films that you had earmarked to be back on here for, which we'll have to try and catch up in the new year and do.
Brilliant.
I'm sure we had.
Look forward
Was one
to
of them the colour purple?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be a light one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christ. Emma, your Twitter is at Emma Bennell _ is that right?
That's correct.
Lovely. And what I'll do is I know that the song that was out at number 1 at the time of this film's release was "Only You" by the Flying Pickets. Now I've done that one before. See, and it would seem churlish to use that one again. So what I was planning on doing was going to use the Christmas number 1 from 1983. Unfortunately, it's the same song.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't that the Christmas number 1?
It was, yeah. So I've kind of backed myself into a corner there.
There you go.
Yeah, that's me. I don't need to play it now. The copyright police aren't going to be coming for me again. Anyway, Emma, thank you very much for joining us. I'll speak to you soon.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or Britpod Scene on Twitter to find out more.